Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to tackle one of life's biggest questions today. How do we actually live a life that feels satisfying? And maybe even more importantly, how do we get to the end and not be filled with regret?
All right, so let's just dive right in. We have to start by facing a feeling that, let's be honest, hits every single one of us at some point. It's that nagging sense that our time here is limited, and maybe, just maybe, it's all for nothing.
And you know what? That feeling, it isn't some kind of personal failure. It's just part of the deal of being human. And it definitely seems to get louder as we get older, right? It pushes us right up against this huge choice. Do we fight to create some kind of meaning, or do we just throw our hands up and go along for the ride? So let's talk about two poems and two very different paths. This exact dilemma was captured, brilliantly centuries ago in Korea in a couple of famous poems, and they really lay out two completely different ways to live.
Okay, so in one corner, you've got Lee Bang-won. He's the ultimate pragmatist, right? He looked at all the chaos around him and basically said, what's the point? Why are we even fighting this? But then in the other corner, you have Jeong Mong-ju. And for him, some things, some principles were worth more than life itself.
So Lee Bang-won's poem, it's all about that kind of cynical, practical approach. It's like he's saying, look, why fight the current? The river's going to flow where it's going to flow. So why not just relax, enjoy the ride, and, just survive?
But then, Jeong Mong-ju comes back with this incredibly powerful response that is the complete opposite. He basically says, no way. His poem makes the case that living for a principle gives your life real meaning, even if you have to die for it. That loyalty, that single-minded heart he talks about, it turned his short, temporary life into something timeless. And here's the thing. The real weight of a choice like that, between just getting by and actually living for something, it often doesn't really hit us until we're much, much older. And by then, it usually shows up as regret. Just listen to this quote from a man looking back at his own life. It's not about one big mistake he made. It's this feeling of emptiness, that feeling that all that time just, poof, slipped right through his fingers, and there wasn't much left to show for it.
So you have to ask, right? Why didn't he think about this stuff when he was younger? Why wait until the finish line is in sight to start thinking about how you ran the race? Well, his answer, it's really, really telling. He basically said he just didn't have a guide. Nobody he knew was talking about how to live a meaningful life. They were all just busy living. And that's the key question, isn't it? If you don't have a map, how are you supposed to find your way?
All right, so let's find that map. For that, we're going to turn to psychology, because a really powerful framework for this exact problem was developed by a famous psychologist named Erik Erikson.
So Erikson had this idea that our whole lives unfold in a series of stages. And in each stage, we have to deal with some kind of central conflict or a crisis. And how we handle each one of those crises, well, that's what shapes who we are and, in the end, how we feel about the life we've lived. And guess what? It's the very last stage, stage 8, that gets right to the heart of this whole satisfaction versus regret thing. Okay, now this is really fascinating. What you're looking at here is pretty much the modern psychological take on those two old poems. Erikson called this final crisis integrity versus despair. So you've got two roads you can end up on. One leads to integrity. That's when you can look back and feel like your life, with all its good and bad, it all made sense. It was whole. The other road, that leads to despair. And that's that bitter feeling of a life that feels incomplete, just full of regrets and what-ifs. And this is the kicker. A life of integrity doesn't just happen to you. It's something you build, piece by piece. It's the result of actually showing up and dealing with the tasks of each stage of life, from learning to trust as a baby, to figuring out who you are as a teen, to contributing to the world as an adult. It's a life you build, not one you just stumble upon.
Okay, so for our last section here, let's get practical. If we want to end up on the integrity side of the street, how do we actually do that? How do we start building that life today so we can avoid that feeling of despair later on?
Believe it or not, some ancient wisdom gives us a really solid place to start. The Book of Ecclesiastes, which spends a lot of time talking about how life can feel meaningless, actually comes to a really simple conclusion. It says real satisfaction is found right here, right now. It's in the simple stuff, enjoying our food, our drink, and finding some kind of joy in the work we do every day. So we can actually boil this down to a 4-step plan.
Number 1, fulfill your duties. Do the things you gotta do. Number 2, pursue your desires, the things you want to do. Number 3, and this is the magic part, find where those two things overlap. And finally, number 4, always, always act today like you're doing a favor for your future self. Make choices that you know you'll be thankful for later. And let's be real, our work is a massive part of this. If what you do for a living just drains you, then you've really got two options. You can find something else to do on the side, a hobby, a project that fills you up. Or you can be brave and just change your career path to find something that actually aligns with who you are. Because at the end of the day, a happy person is someone who gets energy from their work, not someone who has it sucked out of them.
So as we think about building this life, it all has to start here. You've got to dream big. Seriously, because the size of your life is almost always limited by the size of your vision. This is the blueprint.
Then you have to think big. A dream is just an idea on paper, right? Thinking big means you're actually pushing against those mental walls we all build for ourselves. It's about cultivating a mindset that says, yeah, this dream isn't just a fantasy. It's actually possible. And finally, and this is the most important part, you have to follow that dream. You have to take action. See, the future isn't something that just washes over you like a wave. It's something you build, one day at a time, by turning that big dream and that big thinking into actual real-world effort. So that leaves us with the final question, and this one is all on you. What story are you going to write with your life? Is it going to be one of just getting by, or one of living for a principle? One of despair, or one of integrity? The pen is in your hand, and you're writing the next chapter right now with every single choice you make.